Networking 101. And we have a great panel that's going to kind of give some advice on how to do it properly. Get my proper card here. All right, so sitting next to my right, I'm going to introduce them. They have fancy titles, okay? And then I'm going to let them explain exactly what they do once we introduce the whole panel. But we have Charles Wilson, the VP of Operations of Home Depot. And to his right, we have Tiffany Taylor. She's got a promotion, so I have a new title. The Director of Customer Success at Handshake. Next to her, we have Jesse Thomas, the Partnership Marketing Coordinator for the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. Linda DeYampert, the Director of Studio Health and Safety and my colleague at the NFL Network. And lastly, with Rudy Johnson, the President and CEO of Neighborhood House Association, which is based in San Diego, but they just do some fantastic things. You got some really good stuff to say, as does everybody. So, Charles, we're just going to move it on down the line. Your title is not that fancy, but it's quite broad. Again, the VP of Operations for Home Depot. Why don't you just kind of explain what you do?
Thanks, Steve. So a couple of things that I do at Home Depot. So first, I'm responsible for store labor. So we have about 500,000 employees in our store, and I'm responsible for the staffing, the forecasting of that labor across 2,000 stores. Also responsible for driving the execution and strategy of both our specialty businesses. So if you want to buy a kitchen or if you want to get floors installed, as well as our pro business. Contractors are a big part of our portfolio, and we want to continue to make sure that they stay happy and also continue to grow a share of wallet from them. So those are the main components of my responsibilities.
Thank you. How many folks here have a handshake profile? Handshake. Oh, you all just made my team happy. You all can get a day off now. All right. I'm the Director of Customer Success, which means nothing if you work in the tech industry, if you don't work in the tech industry. But what that means is that everyone who works at a university, if your university has purchased Handshake, my team is responsible for helping them to feel like they can utilize that platform successfully. So when I met a young woman yesterday at Oregon State. When your career counselor calls my office and says, hey, the students won't fill out their profile, my team is there to try and let them know, here's some great best practices to get you on the profile, connected with employers, applying for jobs, and getting the job you need after you graduate, right? So I manage a team that speaks to 400 universities across the US, and just making sure that you all are leveraging your platform to speak and connect with employers. I have the fun job.
I, too, like to think I have a super fun job. So when you guys go to NFL or NBA games, there are obviously like timeouts where there are like crazy things happening on the court. It's probably sponsored by somebody. When you look around, there's signage everywhere. That's sponsored by somebody. When you get a giveaway at the door when you walk into a game, that's sponsored by somebody. So who is the team that manages all of these people that pay a ton of money to get visibility in these elements and at these times, at all these different touch points that you interact with fans at the game? And that is my team. So we are a department called Corporate Partnerships, and I am on the side of the department called Partnership Marketing, which is kind of in the biz referred to as activation. So when a partner contract gets sold, it comes over to my team, and we basically make everything happen. So whether that's bringing their executives and their CEOs on away games on a private jet and hosting them for the weekend and being like, oh, my job is so hard, I'm eating steak, I'm flying private, I'm taking you down to the field for this game and it's awful. Whether it's that or it is, making sure their tickets are set for the season, that everyone in the suite is doing well, that their community impact activations are going well. Everything you can think of that like Chevron or Sherwin-Williams or Entergy or any of these big names would be interested in associating with a team with or for, that's what we handle.
You made that sound so simple.
Anything they want.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda DeYampert. I am the Director of Studio Health and Safety. My primary responsibility is risk management, workman's comp issues. We have about 1,100 employees in our NFL media group that my department oversees. And most recently, we have been given the task of contact tracers for the COVID issues that we have today. And that.
You done? You sure? Okay. Good afternoon. Rudy Johnson, President and CEO of the Neighborhood House Association. I'm in my 15th year as the President and CEO by way of Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. That's important to drop that. We are a multifaceted settlement house. We start at the top of the model with Head Start, and we have summer youth internship programs. That's primarily why we're here. We want to hire those babies we're serving in Head Start today, 20 years from now. We are 850 FTE strong, full-time equivalents. We have an annual operating budget of $110 million, and we also do wraparound services for the entire family, mental health, substance abuse, et cetera. So we're a huge economic engine in the San Diego area, and I'm super excited to have a conversation with you today. Thank you.
Well, this is impressive because, I mean, the variety and diversity of fastness of these shot callers up here, they've got a lot to offer. So on that note, we are not going to wait until the end of this conversation for a Q&A. All right? If you've got a question, just raise your hand. Jeremy will be here with a microphone. He's over there. He'll get it to you. So just interject because someone's going to say something right away that's going to want, you guys are going to want to ask questions about. So this is about networking. So Jesse, let's start with you. Right now, folks here are networking. They're going to a lot of these booths to meet people, to get their names out there, to hand out resumes. The importance of doing that, especially at this phase of their lives, because we often hear, how do I get my foot in the door?
It cannot be stressed enough how important it is to put yourself out there. It's something that, to be completely honest, comes super naturally to me. I have never been shy a day in my life. I love talking to people. It's something that I get a lot of energy from, but I can certainly understand how it can seem challenging or intimidating if that's not something that's super natural to you. What I have to stress and emphasize is that people want to help. I am sitting up here with a wonderful group of esteemed panelists that I look up to a lot. I'm probably far more early career than a lot of everyone else sitting up here. So I'm still benefiting a lot from putting myself out there and asking for help. And no matter how senior, I mean, like, these are some super senior folks up here on this panel right now, and they would be more than happy to help you. I feel comfortable speaking for them at that, knowing them for 5 minutes, because I too have reached out to people who are CEOs, who are senior vice presidents, who you think could never answer your LinkedIn message, would never be able to spare 30 minutes of their week for your call, would be bothered by you simply reaching out. And it's just not the case. And I would especially say to people of color, there is such a need and a want to pour back in to younger folks, because they remember, like, because I think everybody wants to make it easier for folks that are coming up behind them. I am quite young, but I still feel like I have something that I can offer to folks like in college, right? I have about 10 years on, folks at that age. So I would be happy to give like early career advice and things like that. The additional point that I would make there is just, I think it is just so beautiful and natural how one connection can lead to easily 10, 20 more, because as soon as you have a conversation and find a common thread, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, da-da-da-da. I have to connect you with Stephanie, who's in LA. Do you know? And then Stephanie knows Joe. Okay, so I'm gonna put you in touch with Stephanie. And it just blossoms. And I've seen that happen with my own career, which has only been 3 seasons so far in the NFL and NBA. And I promise you, I know the majority of at least Black corporate partnerships people in the NFL and NBA, because we're so tight-knit. We crave a village because we don't see ourselves in our own colleagues. And it's just not that big of a group. So I would just really encourage you, even if it takes courage, find a way that's most natural for you, that you can kind of set yourself up for success and make yourself shine, even if that's not coming up to somebody in person, writing a really, well-worded email where you represent yourself really well. Find whatever is the best option for you, but don't not do it. Just don't not do it. People want to help, and it's fantastic.
I would also say that it's really important to practice. If you're shy or kind of introverted, practice with someone that you are comfortable with. Get them in a room. It is extremely important to network, also to know your value. Articulate your value when you're meeting these employers here. And make sure that you definitely connect. It's really important. As she just mentioned, that you never know who you're going to meet in here. You never know who somebody else is going to connect you with someone else. And so this is an opportunity. And when you have that opportunity, you have to take advantage of it, because sometimes you won't get that opportunity again. So seize the moment and make sure you make the best out of this opportunity right here today.
Madam.
Yeah, go ahead, and
Sure.
we'll get to the questions. I love the hands are up already. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. This is going to be fantastic. Number one, wherever I go, I try to share with individuals that are just out of the gate with their career about what I call the 6th minute in the room. And the 6th minute suggests that after the first 5 minutes of introduction, saying hello, looking nice, working the room, then you actually have to know something in that 6th minute. You have to demonstrate your depth and breadth of knowledge in and around that area of skill set that you're looking to engage. Texas Southern prepared me for that 6th minute. My work experience prepared me for that 6th minute, because when you walk into an interview for a CEO position or a head coach or whatever, they want to know what your vision is for that organization. What are you going to do different that hasn't been done before? In that 6th minute of that interview, be prepared for that. Words of wisdom for you. No one shared that with me 15 years ago. I had to learn that.
That's hugely important. Okay, to the young lady right here first, and we've got a couple questions on the front row after you.
Okay. Hey, you guys. Hello, everyone. I'm Faith Lamel, and since you started school, I go to Xavier, University of Louisiana. So I was going to ask, Ms. Jessie, you mentioned about opportunities and, making connections. What was your first connection that, allowed you to build off of that in your career?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, because I think it's important to be honest about not knowing exactly like where you're going and what you're doing as soon as you leave undergrad. It's awesome if you do know, but I went to Spelman, woo. I was a history pre-med major, and everyone who knows everyone who's pre-med drops out by sophomore year, it's treacherous. I did not. I did all the things as basically a history bio double major, and then did biochem and genetics and all of the extra things. Then I did medical research. Then I did summer programs. I did all the things, and I got cold feet applying to med school because I knew I didn't want to go. 25 at 25 years old, and I played coy when I looked at my parents. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. I knew I wanted to work in sports, but I didn't know anyone who did. I was surrounded by a lot of I think what society would deem as traditional success, but it was all people who graduate college and then you go to professional school and then you do that profession your whole life. So I was like, okay, that sounds good, I'll do that. And I didn't want to, but I did it because it's what I saw. Sports felt fantastical to me. It felt like I wanted to be like Julia Roberts or something. And I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be close to it. So fast forward, not going to medical school, I went and got my master's in something I felt a little more passionate about, but I still didn't have the guts to switch to sports. And I finally asked one of my friends from high school out to coffee. She was running social at the Saints. And I was like, I want to work in sports. And I don't know where to start. I have a master's, but do I pick up a mop? I literally don't know. And she was like, Jessie, at the time I was managing partnerships for healthcare systems for Ochsner. So I was managing partnerships between hospitals, and she was like, we like have a thing like that here. And I was like, what are you talking about? Fast forward 3 years, that's my job. And it's a skill set that is very similar to what I was already doing. And I would say, like, once being in this job, I think having I suppose, like, I keep saying guts, but it's like, I don't want to make it seem like it's this big barrier, but like putting myself out there, like recognizing that, like, oh, I have a great network within my own colleagues, but wanting more, like yearning for what I now know is like colleagues that looked like me that did my job, and like wanting to like have somebody to like pour into and like ask if they're going through the same struggles and things like that. That's what I was missing. And I asked my senior sales director, who is a white woman that I admire a lot and who I know prioritizes networking like as a lifestyle that I don't see in my other leaders. I specifically asked her, I went and sat on her porch with her, I brought avocado toast, and I was like, Erica, I want to meet people outside of this organization. Like, I feel like I have a brighter star than what I feel like is being nourished, like, in this moment. Not that I'm bigger or better than my job or my org, but I just, like, I needed more from a network. And she sent 6 emails that day. And those 6 emails have like changed my entire last year. And those are the examples of the introductions that I had. I talked to those 6 people, and each of those 6 people introduced me to 2 people, and those 2 people introduced me to, and I get recommendations to apply to things that I had no idea were out there. I have the guts to apply. I actually get it. Oh my God, what? Like, you don't know what you don't know. And I mean, it's just, I asked Mikkel to coffee one day and told her I wanted to work in sports and didn't know if I had to grab a mop. Like, literally, that's my story. And so I just think, like, being honest, being transparent, but also being confident. And like knowing, like, yeah, I might not know anything about it, but like I know I'm smart, I know I'm capable, I know I'm hungry, and no one's gonna outwork me. And the sky is literally the limit if I think you have those elements.
Hey, Rudy, you should have her come talk to your group because she's there by the 3rd minute. She does not get there at the 6th minute. She just loaded up. All right, we got another question.
Good afternoon. My name is Kareem Bowe, representing Alcorn State University. And I had a question directed towards Mr. Johnson. So you mentioned having that length and depth of breadth of information. For students preparing for interviews and whatnot, what guidelines should students use to have the right information for that interview?
Well, first of all, anyone from the SWAC that wants information from
Oh,
me,
here we go.
I am more than happy to
Here
deliver.
we go.
So,
You got
with that
Miak over
said,
here balancing the scale.
I think one of the things that I had to learn, and again, these are words of wisdom, whether you take them or not, is up to you as an individual. So if they work for you, take them on. If they don't, discard them and move forward, okay? So here's a few words. Number 1, we don't know what we don't know. So at the age of 40 and a brand new CEO, I thought I had depth and breadth of knowledge, but now that I'm 56, I look back and I see 16 years ago, I didn't have that depth and breadth of knowledge I thought I had. And for that, I'm a much better CEO today than I was when I got the job 15 years ago. Second thing is be open-minded. So once you discover you don't know everything, be open-minded to new ideas, new approaches, and new information. And then the last thing is study your craft. Learn how to build an engine from scratch. That means budget management. That means meet and confer. That means contractual issues. That means handling HR issues. Everything that goes on in my company, as the president and CEO, I'm responsible for. I can't pass the buck. 22 board members depend on me on a daily basis to run that $100 million company. So understand what you don't know, accept that, be open-minded, and continue to learn. Those would be my 3 nuggets for you.
Tiffany, before we get to a couple more questions, like we see some of these football players out here who are going to be showcasing themselves in the Legacy Bowl tomorrow. These guys and a lot of students, they dedicate themselves to a singular focus for the majority of the week, right? You talk about time management and budgeting. For people like them who are now, be it the NFL, be it the corporate world or whatever, we're talking about spreading our wings and keeping open mind. What's the advice for like any student who has been so singularly focused to say, okay, let me start planting some seeds out there in a variety of ways that maybe I haven't had the time to do?
Absolutely, it's a great question. I'm an engineer's daughter. Measure twice, cut once.
It's coming out. It's coming out. The Jamaican accent is coming out.
When you have minimal resources, and again, my dad built our home, you don't have the ability to test a piece of wood because that might be the one plank of wood you have. Follow me on this analogy. Measure twice, cut once. So what we just heard here is that you don't have a lot of time. We heard from many panels before, I hope you all were here, quality over quantity. I'm not here just to throw adages at you, but I want them to stick. So when you have minimal time, what you spend it on has to be very important. And I want to share with you the switch of maybe how you interact with your other platforms. So TikTok, Instagram, I'm going to date myself because watch, I'm going to use an improper analogy here, but you're trying to like it all, you're trying to favorite it all, you want to have 1 million followers, you want to have followed 1 million things. That is not the approach for this search. That is not the approach you want to take for this. You've been practicing all week, so you might only have 1 hour. Whatever it is, create a habit around it. If it's 30 minutes, then it's 30 minutes every Friday that you're going to look at X employer. What we just heard at the end here, you all have more data points available to you than any of us did when we were looking for a job. Leverage it. I promise you, every employer here is expecting you to have gone to their website. You know the events they have coming up. You've read the blog they put out. You know what's coming up next for them because they expect it of you. And I promise you, there's a candidate behind you that researched more than you. Don't let that happen. So the time you spend, depth is more important than breadth. So do the research and put in that time and find out as much as you can about the Pelicans, about Home Depot, do it all, but figure it out and try to hone in, and I promise you depth is going to be more important. Don't just scan the first page. When I would go on an interview, I would talk about how, oh, last year I saw that this event only had this turnout. Do you know why that was? And they're like, what? You knew about last year's event? Because I was carving through. I was trying to be their events manager, so of course I wanted to look at their audience and their demographic and what happened and how it changed. And you will see the reaction on people's faces because that is not something that someone else asked about. So when you ask how you spend the time, because it is so limited, be very focused. Create a ritual. Athletes know about rituals. You know it better than most folks. I try to create my habits from learning from athletes. And I'm a horrible athlete. I should be picked last on a dodgeball team. But you know that craft very well. Apply that to your job search process. Create a habit around it, stick to it, and be very focused. It's not about breadth.
I would also say to be very strategic as well. Don't get caught up in the brand. Research the company. Find out exactly what they're doing, what they're about. If this is something is a good fit for you, it's extremely important. So you want to be very strategic also with your time that you have and be focused on exactly what you are looking for. So it's one of those things where you have to really hone on exactly what are you looking for, your elevator pitch, and present yourself very well and strive for your next part of your career here. So, yes.
Real quick. Were you going to say something? Charles going to say something?
Yeah.
Then we have a question here, then here, then here.
So I'll jump in, and I come to you guys via Hampton University, and
The other HU.
the real HU,
The
real,
institute that graduated.
the real HU.
My parents are Hamptonians, though, so you're
Exactly.
good. You're good.
So, two things I'll tell you, and I like to convey perspective from real life happenings to me personally. So, one is I'm an extreme introvert. And usually I say that in a crowd, and that usually resonates with a bunch of folks. And so, the second thing is when we talk about networking, it's a part-time job. Make no mistake about it. At every level of your career, whether you're starting out looking for an opportunity, whether you're trying to get to a master's program or an accelerated degree, it's a part-time job and it never stops. But here is the key thing that you will find out. Most people do not follow up past the first conversation. There might be a thank you, it was nice meeting you email, but that's not truly a follow-up. And I find it all the time. I don't even carry business cards anymore. I will give telephone numbers. Most people won't use them. So it's really, so as you think about the competition and you think about networking, is you have an opportunity to really create a relationship, to build a rapport. And I tell you, and I promise you, 95% of the people don't take advantage of it. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to be part of the 95 or do I want to be in the 5? Because the 5 are the ones that are actually going to get the opportunities. So I'll just, end with this anecdote. When I was applying to business school, I applied to 7 schools. Only got into 1. The one I got into was the one where I actually went to the school and I asked, what do you really need to get in? And I forced the conversation a step further and I said, no, not the high level stuff. Tell me how this process really works. When my application comes in, where does it go? Who reads it? Oh, students read the applications? Oh, you have okay. All right. Is there anyone that's on that board that I can talk to? What are the themes that they're seeing? Right? So again, as you network, ask the challenging questions. What is it that you really want to know? People say, oh, you want to make an impression, make a great impression, and they'll remember you. No, not when they're meeting thousands, right? It's really hard, but the follow-up and the pointed questions, that's where you really make inroads.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant advice. And, also what Tiffany said, do your research. Because I have found that every employer or any person you talk to, if you know something about them or how they operate, they immediately hit the on switch. Okay, if you just go there, well, hey, I want to be on TV and I wanted this and that, well, okay, you and 15,000 other people I've spoken to today. But if you know something, hey, last week on NFL Network this happened, and then this person asked that question, you're like, okay. There's depth there.
Mm-hmm. And Steve, they will ask.
They will ask. They will ask, but you're also the follow-up. Mm-hmm. That is, so many people whiff on that. It's amazing. We've all given out our information to a ton of people, and there might be one that follows up. And we'll follow right back. As Jesse said, we want to help. So, okay, we have a question here. Okay. And we've got 2 more after that.
Hi, good evening. Okay, my name is Taylor Tobias, and I currently attend Xavier University. However, I am a freshman, so, a little younger, and most internships, people that I visited around, aren't starting their, it starts at your junior or upcoming senior year. So my question for you is, how do you, how would you go about staying on people's minds for like that long of a time? With me being a freshman, it's my first year and I'm like ineligible for most of these internships. So how would you suggest that I stay on people's minds?
Great question.
I'll keep it short. I love that you just asked that. My company sits on a lot of research that has told us employers are actually trying to make those engagements from your sophomore year. So you're not just ahead of the game, you're on time, honey. Don't worry about it. And what is great about that is because employers are competing with each other, we want to be, remind me of your name again? We want Taylor to know about us before the other company. So make no mistake, employers want you to connect with them, okay? My company only survives because we are banking that employers want to connect with you early. So my advice to you is you start connecting with them early. Every bit that you've heard here, you now have a jump start on the research. So I hope that when I hear from Taylor is even telling me about my company 4 years ago, and I wasn't even there 4 years ago, right? So now you have a breadth of time to research. So I'm going to keep coming back to that. Secondly, on Handshake and your other platforms, you can like them, you can follow them, you can start messaging. So start the relationship. Everyone here has mentioned that. You get a longer time. I don't know what dating is like at your age anymore, folks, but start the courtship is where I'm getting at. Start the courtship early, figure out who you like, get to know the culture in a way that sometimes many of us, you don't find out until you're there. You get to find that out, ask those questions much earlier.
But at the same time, real quick, the follow-up.
Yeah.
Other people might not follow up. So what you may think disqualifies you now will qualify you because other people didn't handle their business.
But you know what? That's one of the biggest mistakes in networking is waiting too late. Oftentimes, I meet with students, and they're looking for internships, and they're about to graduate in May, and it's January. And so you are starting off early. So don't think that you're late. You are getting ahead of the game. So I think that is wonderful, because I tell students all the time, start when you first go to college and start building those relationships. So when it's time to start applying for internships in your junior and senior year, you'll be ahead of the game.
Okay, great. Here in the red? Oh, it's you. Okay, I thought you had a question.
Can I
Oh.
just respond real quick? Because let me just be real quick about this. This young lady in the purple sweater, see her and we'll put you to work right away in a virtual
There you go.
internship.
Right on.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah, push it up.
Good afternoon, panelists. I'm Ashbel Lamar from FAMU. I have two questions. First is for you, Mr. Johnson. You talked about that 6 minute. So I wanted to ask, because sometimes we're not always going to be prepared. Sometimes, we might face something unexpected. So, what can we do or say, in that 6 minute to, still seem as a good candidate or, still, build up on that initial introduction? And then,
Excellent question. And so let me go back to the answer that I gave your colleague. Number one, just embracing the fact that you don't know everything. Oftentimes we walk in the room and we want to pretend like we know everything, and that's how we work the room. And sometimes just acknowledging that I'm there to learn in that 6 minute is very helpful. That's number one. Number two, networking, we've been talking about it one-sidedly. And in my experience, networking is a dual prong. Individuals that are new in their career, they're seeking more seasoned professionals to network with. The reason why I got on a plane and flew all the way out here yesterday was because my responsibility as a president and CEO is to come back and pay it forward with these students that I'm in front of. So I'm networking from a different perspective. Look to seek out those individuals that have that open mind and open heart, such as not just me, any one of these panelists or other folks in this room that are willing to pay it forward, because those are the ones that are going to help you with, and whether it's depth or breadth, I think you need both, number one. Let me just say that, because you can be deep, but when they get to the next subject, you whiff, you draw a blank. So I think you need to be deep and wide in many subjects, and those folks will give it to you straight.
Hey, Rudy, let me just tag on to that. And it does come back in my mind to that follow-up. Character is extremely important. humility is also extremely important. So if you're in a situation and you whiff, for me, one of the most powerful follow-up communications I could receive is a reminder of, I met you or what have you, and you asked me this question and I didn't have it. But now not only do I have it, and this can even be over email, not only do I have it, I also have this, this, and this. That's tenacious. That's memorable for a leader. That's thoughtful. Who wouldn't want that on their team? Because everyone on this panel has been in a meeting, mine was just yesterday, where I was asked a question by the CEO and I did not know the answer. But 30 minutes after that meeting, I had that and more information. It's just part of the norm. You heard Rudy say, 15 years ago, he didn't have all, he thought he was wide and deep. None of us have all the, we're all professionals, every one of us is successful. There's things that we don't know, right? So whiffing is part of, the commonplace. It's what you do afterwards that really leaves an impression.
And my second question was for you as well. You mentioned, just emailing them, thank you for, I appreciate meeting you and stuff. You said that's not a follow-up. So what does a follow-up look like? And is there a template for that as well?
Memorable, right? I mean, so here's the thing is, it's really hard to stand out at a career fair when, an employer is meeting hundreds of people, sometimes in an hour. I think in terms of the follow-up, number one, try to make a connection beyond just the business, right? Try to find common ground. How long have you worked there? Ask questions about them just like they're asking questions about you. You might find out that they have a dog. Great. So now when you follow up, you can say, hey, I love talking to you. You told me you had that Labrador. I have that lab too, et cetera, et cetera. Now I can connect with the person. So then you can go a little bit deeper and you say, listen, here's what I would like to do next. Is there someone? How can I get 20 minutes, 15? I'm a big fan of asking for 10 or 15 minutes, no more, right? Because I don't want to, a half hour is a meeting block in my world, right? So 10 minutes, can I get 10 minutes of your time? I'd like to be connected with someone else. Is there someone? It doesn't really matter. Have a focus, but that's how you connect with them. But you have to find something, that common ground. So that's why it's so important to be conversational. It's, I found out I could tell you in the 5 minutes we had back there in the room, I can have a conversation with everyone up here and have common ground because I just listen. So I could probably send an email next week to everyone and boom, just one little fact. Ocho Rios, right, about living born and raised in California, on and on. Spelman, I can find that common fact because I was listening and now I've created a memory.
Okay, you here in the blue, and then we're going to come to the lady in the red, and then you guys have had your hands up. Well, let's go in the back. Let's get, but you're going to, so blue, red, and then we'll go to the back. We're gonna make Laura work with the mic here. Okay.
Good morning. Ooh, good afternoon.
That's all right. We'll remember that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kiana Banks, a rising senior at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, majoring in sports medicine with a focus in biochemistry. So I resonate with you all day. So I just got into sports, and literally straight from LinkedIn, it went, what did you do that you didn't do when you had time? And that was COVID time. COVID time, got on LinkedIn, connected with Lee Steinberg, one of the biggest agents for sports, didn't even know who he was. And then that just turned into more connections. My mentors are Usama Young and Kathleen Ikpa. I say her name wrong sometimes.
From the NFL legal office,
yes.
Yeah.
And so that turned into an NFL experience-ship. So I can get you right, get with me. But my question is, so for us all being first, what is some advice if we are battling with the fear of success and the fear of failure at the same time?
Jesse, since you have the connection. Is there a mic? Wow.
It was such a great question. I want to repeat it so that I do you justice and answer exactly what you're looking for. You said, what's our advice in moments when you're battling with success and also failure?
So the fear of success and failure at the same time.
Interesting. That they could happen to you simultaneously, or just that you're going to try something and you don't know which direction it'll go?
I would say both, just
Okay.
because a lot of us are first generational college students, so we don't really know what's even going on right now.
Yeah. Wow. That's a phenomenal question. I would say, I'm thinking in real time. I would say don't let it impede you. Don't let it stop you. I think my husband and I say to each other all the time, we push each other constantly in our careers and in lots of ways. If you're not a little bit scared, should we be doing more, right? And like I don't know if that's for everyone, right? But I can speak from my personal experience. Whenever I'm looking at a new experience, when I'm looking at a new potential opportunity, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, if it's not pushing me into a little bit of an unknown, a little bit of a discomfort zone, I don't know that that's necessarily like, I don't know if I feel like I'm doing me justice, just because I am really self-aware about like my level of curiosity combined with ambition, and I think like that makes a unique little recipe that I do like to kind of live in the, like when things start feeling comfortable, I start getting a little antsy, right? And so I'm driven by that feeling. I think that that is something that can vary from person to person. But in the 20 seconds I've known you, I mean, I feel like you got it. Like, I feel like you're also quite ambitious and curious and are willing to put yourself out there, and definitely like a healthy kind of risk taker, right? Just putting yourself out there on LinkedIn and connecting with these folks who are such known names. Like, a lot of people would not do that because there would be assumptions that like there's no way. But you were the person who was like, you miss the shots you don't take, right? So, yeah, that would be my answer. I think most things that I really want, I'm a little bit also petrified of, and I'm into that. So I'd say go for it.
There you go. Okay, young lady in the red.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Carly Johnson. I attend the Alcorn State University. I'm a senior, majoring in health science. My question is, how can I effectively give my elevator pitch without getting off track?
Ooh. So number one, understand what your elevator pitch is. Get it down the inside, I would say 1 or 2 minutes, and practice it, quite frankly, and practice with your colleagues. And once you get it right, be succinct. There's nothing worse than someone who is asked a specific question and you start splintering into 5 or 6 different areas, right? Learn to listen and answer exactly what's asked of you.
I would also say do it in front of someone that you're comfortable with and ask for feedback. And that way you'll get better and better at it with your elevator pitch.
What if I told you it was someone's job to make sure that that happens for you? Do you know that your career center, they're paid to do that with you, to do mock interviews? And I'm saying this because career centers tell me every day that their appointment time slots aren't filled, that they wish students would come through. It is literally the most painful part of a higher education person's role. Because when I meet you all and you say, I wish I had more help, I want more, it is an entire office's job that reports to the president, and they get resources because they're able to say X amount of students got jobs by coming through our office. And so please utilize those resources. They literally wake up every day hoping that you are going to feel comfortable in your elevator pitch.
Last thing, Toastmasters. If you all have not heard of Toastmasters, experience that and do your 10 speeches and become a Toastmaster, a CTM.
But you know, yeah, like toast.
Like you're toasting a glass, like you're giving a toast. Masters.
But what Tiffany said is a great point. Real quick before the question, I've had 3 sons go through it, and I don't think once they went to their career advisor. Now, I know not every school has a career development or career advisor department, but if yours does, that is what they are there for. They're the ones with connections as well. So make sure you find them and get familiar because they are hungry to help. Already got a question in the back.
Hello. Here we go. Hello, Wesley Bowers, Bowie State University, represent Team Gaither tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, good luck, good luck.
Appreciate it. So my question is, I know I have a lot of friends that have zero experience. Well, they had previously zero experience in the field that they're currently in. I know an art major that's working at Deloitte and things like that. So, what would your words of encouragement or your motivation be for that student or person that lacks that courage to just take a leap of faith, in order to get a fresh start, knowing that they want to do something and step into the unknown? What would your words be to that person that needs that extra push?
I would say it's just like getting into the swimming pool. It's a little chilly. The best way to get in is just jump in. And so I offer that perspective because that was a little bit of me as well. I majored in accounting, and my first job out of college was computer programming. And similarly, I had to go tell my parents 4 years later that I'm not going to be counting beans, right? I'm going to take a hard right and figure out some code and, because it was a little bit more interesting than being an auditor. And so lo and behold, I found myself in a peer group, in a cohort group of history majors, biology majors, because we went to a company that was training. It didn't matter if you had the tenacity and a desire to come in and have an impact, that's what they wanted. So companies are the same way. The reason an art major can go in and do something different because it's about creativity. And each one of us is creative in our own ways. So when you find that, you go broad, you go deep, you do the research, and you talk about your elevator pitch. It's about what you have to offer to them, regardless of your background. So the things that I do, I was working after all of that education. There was a long time, where I was in an apron working in stores. I was the guy it was me, hammers, nail, it was me. It was me, but it was fascinating, it was passionate, I got to talk to people, and I got to learn a lot about the business. And you talk about doing some things, I knew 2 things when I put that apron on the first day. I knew a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver, and that was it. Right? 34,000 unique SKUs in a store, and I just knew about 2 of them, and I kind of found them, that's it. Right? So you just have to jump all in, but no one knows you better than you. Sell you. That's it. Sell you and the value you can bring to any organization.
But, that's a great question, though, because, Tiffany, the world has changed. COVID changed the occupational structure for a lot of people because people are now working from home instead of going into the offices. We saw the problems with shipping and supply that required a different type of workforce. I think what he's asking, is really poignant just based on the way that the world and the occupational structure has flipped. Is there, the advice you have on that?
Absolutely. I think what we have seen is just that. If you all, I hope we are reading our news articles, or if you haven't, I think you've heard a lot of things up here you should be looking up when you get out of here. The Great Resignation. There are folks who are leaving jobs that they went to school for, have worked in industry for years for. Folks are going. So that has put employers in a very sticky space. We have to be a bit more flexible in what we were providing, what we are looking for, what we are open to, and that makes me very happy because it means that where it took me a very long time and about 36 or so rejections before I got this job, we're a little bit more open to career pivots. We're a little bit more open to my industry, my company sits on a lot of data. We realize employers aren't even filtering for major anymore. That's going down. That is very good for you It means you can be a little less scared than maybe we were. Because folks just want to know, you've heard us, we haven't been talking about majors, we're talking about tenacity. We're talking about being prepared. We're talking about value add. I love what you just said about, I know that this is that hard place. Again, go to your resources on campus. Figure out what is your superpower. I get a lot of folks who will ask me, well, Tiffany, what are you looking for? Something I learned from my mom years ago, which has not changed, is that she would ask interviewees, no, what can you give me? What can you give me? Don't allow me to tell you then that means I'm actually looking for one person. I'm actually looking for and you need to let me know that you are the person. You know how you get to do that? By doing your research. Because you can talk about, hey, I saw that you experienced this thing last year. You know what I would have done with that? Tell me what I don't know. But that takes you really being reflective, being humble. We have all said some very key things. But you have to figure out what is your superpower. So when I do those informational interviews and folks are like, well, Tiffany, how did you work all those years in higher ed and now you work in tech? And I was like, do you, boo? Like, mine was 15 years of experience in higher ed. Like, you don't have that. Like, that was mine. You can't take my Swiss Army knife away, but what is yours? You have one. And we want you to be able to articulate that.
That's great. Now we have a couple questions here. Oh, okay, right here, and then when you're finished, you can pass on this way. You already got yours. We got the Alcorn State mob up here, by the way.
Good afternoon. My name is Stefan Savage. I'm a student athlete from Alcorn State University. I understand that everyone has different life experiences throughout life, and you have things that might push you down. So I want to ask, what life event might have caused you and spurred that motivation on for you?
Anybody?
Well, I'll start. Every one of us has probably had some stumbles along the way. I came out, I found a job after undergrad and rolled 2.5 years later into business school, right into a great job in doing consulting, and I got laid off. Moved from New York to the DC area, and back then, candidly, and Tiffany talked about the resources you have that we didn't have. The way you apply for jobs was by letter. You're laughing.
Not email, letter, right?
Not email, by letter. Outplacement was a corporation that would identify key resources and companies, and you would mail a letter. There was no database online, no postings of jobs. You mailed a letter. And for 2.5 months, with a great education, great background, I got nothing but rejections. Nothing but rejections. And so you start to question yourself. But I knew I had a good package of goods. And so sometimes it's the opportunity that you weren't looking for that becomes, your staple. And it's okay. I'll tell you candidly, I took this job at Home Depot 18 years ago as something to do until the job came along that I really wanted to do. But I'm a God-fearing man. I'm not putting anything on anybody else. God put me where I needed to be, and that's why I'm still here 18 years later. Right? So sometimes it's the blessing that you can't see. So I see a lot of people turning their nose on opportunities. You just don't know why that opportunity was presented to you at that point in time. And that was the opportunity that pulled me up because I was about to get married, and now I'm unemployed, and I'm getting job rejections, and I have a wife that has pretty high expectations, to be candid. She went to Hampton with me. So that was it, but everyone has a story just like that.
So I'd like to share 3. I think there are about 5 or 6 touches in your life and career that really help you matriculate in life and in your professionalism. First, the first touch. So I was a student athlete at Texas Southern University playing football. My last football game was against Tennessee State University. I hung my cleats up for the last time as a student athlete. And at that point, it was very clear to me that I probably was going to go professional in something other than football. Okay? So I embraced my civil engineering degree that I traded for my performance on the field with Texas Southern. We had an agreement. And so I took that degree and went back home to San Diego to start off my professional career. Second touch. I was working at the city of San Diego as a civil engineer. My career was really hitting a dead end. I wasn't really progressing. And so the then city manager tapped me on the shoulder to work on the largest project in the history of San Diego. I built the expansion of the San Diego Convention Center. While I was working on that project, I was noticed by a woman who was president and CEO of the San Diego Convention Center Corporation, because we met on a weekly basis networking. And it was through my work and my action, my hustle and my grit that I got from Texas Southern that she decided to bring me on board once the convention center was done. Touch 2. I became general manager of the San Diego Convention Center. My predecessor in this job today passed away in office 15 years ago. They had an open competition, and I became the president and CEO of the corporation that I now run. So my point is, the moral to the story is oftentimes when you think you've hit a dead end, there's a higher power and a more divine order in terms of how your steps are supposed to go in life and in your profession. Embrace it, believe in it, but most of all, trust in it.
Just awesome. So are there two here, or just one? Okay, so there's two. You guys have time for two? We're at the limit, but I mean, this is awesome. I mean, this engagement's incredible. Okay, so we got you.
Hi, hello. I'm Fallon Gant. I'm from the Southern University and A&M College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go Jags. So I am all about creativity, and with me being a mass comm major, I love the arts. I'm going into film production, so just being fascinated at listening to you all talk about careers and talk about networking and depth and breadth. My question to all of you would be, how do you express your creativity within your career that fascinates others?
Jesse, I think you've got a pretty strong hold on that.
Can I borrow this? One of the things that's so cool about my job that I was flabbergasted on by like day 2 was I get there, I have a stack of contracts on my desk to learn, which is my partnerships. I don't like to like think of them as contracts. I like to think of them as relationships. But at the beginning, I had to learn them. There were a couple things that like we'd been doing for a while at the Saints and at the Pels. The Pelicans were going through kind of just like a cultural rebrand that was being helmed by like our brand and marketing teams. And then the Saints are culturally solid, like the most solid. Like they're a dream for a fan base. But there are things about our, oh, wow. Getting some energy from row 2. We are in New Orleans, boo. The dome's right there. The Saints are a dream. And there are things about the fan experience that like we've been doing the same forever and ever and ever. That we wanted to revamp, that we like wanted to look at again, wanted to make a little more exciting. And as a fan, as a huge Saints fan, like I had not until I was in my role, like realized like how huge of a role partners played in Saints game day, whether it's like the Entergy lineman who does the stand and wave, the People's Health Champion, the Carnival Cruise catch, the Coke da-da-da, like all things that Saints fans like grow up knowing. But there were a couple of clients of mine that I was challenged by my leadership pretty immediately to be like, we don't like this, and we have a renewal coming up, so like you need to figure out something else. And I was just like, in like the game that all the fans come to, I was like, you just like want me to pick some, like just make something? And they were like, well, I mean, run it by us, but yeah. Like, they're just like, this is yours now. This is your account. This is your client. This is your partnership. This is yours to run. This is yours to own. You come up with something. You sold us in this interview, right? They didn't say that, but like, that's the energy I'm getting. They're like, you're the healthcare girl that stepped in here and was like, I can do it, so let's see it, right? And this is like month 2, and I'm like, oh my God. Just because like, as a Saints fan, like Saints game day means so much to me. And I just could not, and I could not believe that like now the controls of this thing were in my hand. And like, of course there's a process where like I come up with a cool idea, I vet it by all the VPs, and then it gets, you get the partner sign off on it, and then you roll it into motion. But like, that is my job. And I don't think I fully understood that. It's almost like they sold me on it, and I thought I was gonna get there, and then it was gonna be like, it wasn't, like I don't really get to do that, and I really get to do that. And it's amazing. Like that's doper than like anything I could have imagined. And the level of ownership that I got as new as I was, I think was really incredible. And I'll pass the mic after this, but it is such, it's not only like the entire process, I think, is one of creativity, because it's not like I come up with these amazing ideas on my own, right? Like I get to be this like facilitator of this amazing process and like manage these conversations and this imaginative opportunity with all of these various stakeholders in my organization. So I'm pulling in social, I'm pulling in production, I'm pulling in marketing, I'm pulling in operations, I'm pulling in equipment management, like all to sit around a table and be like, all right, like this is what this partner wants to do. Let's make a story. Let's make a connection. Let's make something that sticks, that lands, that's gonna be awesome. The entire thing is so much more creatively exciting than everything I'd possibly done before that. And so it's really one of the most mind-bogglingly cool things about my gig, aside from riding on private jets. I really like that.
But yeah, but Linda, real quick, I mean, is that unusual to be granted that type of creativity, or well, I want Linda to. I want to come from outside. I want Linda with like because I got a different organization, the one I work for in the NFL, or do brilliant minds like Jesse's not push the envelope enough to get employers to think outside the box?
Very great. I mean, I can think about Battle of the Brains. We have a HBCU platform called the Battle of the Brains. And one of the things in terms of creativity was really just trying to make sure that they understood the value of the creativity of these young minds and how it would bring value to our company. And it took some time. And honestly, I walked the hallways thinking, I'm gonna get this money. I'm gonna get this money. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I was afraid to ask each department $50,000. And it cost us $250,000. So I had to go through 5 departments for them to see the creativity of what that was going to bring to our network. And we finally did it. But you have to have somebody see the value proposition to the company, to the organization. And so we had to articulate that value proposition. And we are still doing that project today.
And the return on that, what she's talking about, the HBCU Battle of the Brains, it's a program that's South by Southwest where 35 or 36 HBCUs send teams of like, I think between 4 and 6, and they are presented with 2 real-world problem/solutions from the NFL. And so these brilliant teams have 24 hours, and I mean these kids do not sleep, to come up with solutions that are STEM-based, that are all, and then have to present them to a panel. And then I think the winning team gets like $100,000. So that's prize money, because now we're saying, okay, these are the brilliant minds that we're going to hire. We're investing in this project, so they're going to hire. And it was a tough sell.
Yeah, it was really a tough sell.
But kind of like what Jessie was saying, you know, they trusted her, okay? And Linda's saying we had to convince people to trust to trust people to do that. And that's, again, it's not always easy. You're not always going to find an employee that's going to say, you do this. Because a lot of them are going to say, like, this is the way we've always done it. Yeah. Okay, so, and then one final question over here before we wrap this up.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Jasmine Elliott. I am a 22-year-old senior mass communications major at Southern University Agriculture and Mechanical College. And my question is, how can you connect what you are working towards with businesses that don't offer it?
Ooh. All right, does anybody kind of understand that question? When you say working towards, like in your degree? Okay, so do we get that, or do we need to have her explain a little bit more?
Yeah, need some clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity.
So by that means, like, I'm a broadcast journalism major. So what I'm looking forward to is like businesses that, you know, when you look for internships, they don't have the specific thing that you're working towards in that business, but you want to get your foot in the door with something. Ooh. So how can you actually really connect with that business?
No, that's a very, very good question, because we all know people who've gotten their foot in the door thinking that that was going to lead to another open door, and then they're miserable within 6 months.
It wasn't what they thought.
So here's a couple of points of view. Might not get all the way home, but maybe get you part of the way there. To Steve's point, if you take a divergent step to get a foot in the door, you're going to have staying power, because you probably are going to be doing something that maybe you don't really love, but you have to be fantastic at it, because it's going to be the catapult to really try to get you to where you want to be. Part two is, and I'll end how I started, is networking is a part-time job. So when you hit the ground running, doing that thing that you might not really love, you better be going to the communications folks, right, and really building those inroads, building a reputation for delivering on something that you're not passionate about, so that you can say, watch what I do when I come and I do something I really love. Right? So it's a two-pronged attack, but you're going to have the staying power to really connect to the job and the opportunity that you want. And so I completely understand, because we don't have a ton of communications engineers at the Home Depot, you know, communications majors coming into that organization, because it's a really small group. But it's really important for us, for sure. But ultimately, it's about getting that foot in the door, and then who are the people that I really need to talk to, so that can be my next position, because our culture is one where every 12 to 18 months, folks are moving on to something else, and they're going across the business as well.
And Rudy, I want to get you, how do people make themselves known? Because that's the thing. People may come in to a marketing department, but their true goal is to be in accounting. How can they make themselves known and let people know that that is the end goal?
So I'm going to use a little bit of sporting analogy, because I'm an ex-ball player. You know, blocking and tackling is blocking and tackling, regardless of what industry you're in. Things like being on time, I'm a big proponent in, if I start a meeting, I'm there 5 minutes early, and guess what? The meeting's going to start on time, and my folks have received that message, trust me. Number two, just understanding the rhythm of the workplace as a youngster coming out of school, just understanding what payroll submittal was about, understanding with, you know, what you need to do to navigate to get your projects, you know, approved, seen, and heard. And then number three, I would say, if it isn't your cup of soup or cup of tea in that particular organization, parlay that into something that you really want to go after, and using that body of knowledge and experience that you just gained from that last experience to really try and go after that thing that you want to go after. And the final thing I'll say is, I'm such a long way away from civil engineering. I mean, that's what I majored in 1988. I'm giving away my age. That's okay. I don't do one thing connected to civil engineering today in my current job. So you don't know what you're going to be doing 20, 25, 30 years from now. So that's a little piece of advice.
But
Yes, that would be great. And please listen. She's speaking to you.
I was your major in college, and I did an internship at a station, and then after that, there was no job for me. So I started volunteering just to write scripts for them during my internship. And then while I was doing that, I was like, they don't have anyone doing this on the weekends. So I created the job. I proposed, you guys need an associate producer. It doesn't exist. I can come in, I can help with the weekend staff, I can help on holidays when nobody wants to come. In the morning shift, nobody wants to do that. Like wherever you need it, I will fill in that slot. And I proposed it to the news director, and they hired me after I graduated. Make the job that you want if it's not there.
And for those who don't know, this is Shanika Dabney Henderson, the Vice President of Production for the Saints and Pelicans. She's a former colleague of mine at NFL Network, and she and her steering committee put on this career fair for you. Okay, so she's a bad one. She is a real one. Okay, you got something to say, Linda? Because I'm going to button this up.
I mean, I think that's great, and I know what you're talking about because there's been a lot of people in the sports industry that have created their own path. But I can honestly say to you guys that there's always somebody looking, always someone looking. And sometimes it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And that comes from the networking opportunities. So just keep in mind that somebody is always watching and see your good work, and you can create those opportunities that Shanika just mentioned.
Well said. This was an awesome panel. If you've got questions, maybe hem us up in a corner real quick, but we got to button this up. We've really gone over because you guys have been so engaged. Thank you. Thank you from this panel to you, because you guys were really paying attention and really on this, and you got some great answers. Panelists, way to turn it up. That was fantastic. Really appreciate you guys. Shanika, thank you for putting this together. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.